Good morning, fellow Nigerians. This is Nelson Oluwabukola Michael again, and there's a need for us to have another discussion this morning. And there will still be a series of discussion that we're going to be having. I thank you all for your responses to all the messages we've been putting out there. I thank you for all your support. I cannot mention all the names of those of you who have been sending messages and been providing feedback that are useful for us to make research and provide good feedback to you. And we're also working on our end here. Like I told you, a lot of our friends back here and a lot of Nigerians have teamed up to help us in this cause. And they've also realized that the way forward is for us to start a change from within our hearts. I'm pleased to notify you that I've reached out to the White House and to CNN and to the correspondent Christy Amanpour, who had several times interviewed some of the presidents in Nigeria and who have listened to their lives and have rebuffed everything they've mentioned. Very soon we would have the opportunity to go on the stations and provide feedback. I am hoping that very soon we would hear from the White House and would get the help we've been requesting. Now back to the reason for today's discussion. One of the feedback I've gotten from some of the people who have been looking at our messages is a series of questions that I hope to provide answers to through this medium. Now, a good friend of mine who's a hardworking young man asked some questions this morning, and I'll be sharing those discussions with you. So one of the questions he asked was why I was doing this. And he wanted to know if I truly feel the things that Nigerians feel. If I truly feel the sufferings of Nigerians. Because I'm in the United States of America, he wanted to know if I was just doing this for personal reasons or for the actual goal of making changes or influencing changes in Nigeria. So his question was, Michael, do you feel the suffering that Nigerians suffer? And this is my response to that question. I graduated from high school in 2001 from Ilamoye Grammar School, Okota Isolo. And I can tell you that for the 6 years spent going to school, I can count on my fingertips the number of times I was able to afford transport fare to school. I lived in Ikotoigbe, and I had to trek. For most of the days of my high school days, I have to trek from school 30 miles to school and 30 miles back every single day. And in addition to this, there was no money to buy good food, to afford decent breakfast or decent lunch. And even supper wasn't certain. And I'm talking about my own situation. I know I trek to school with a lot of friends also, and I know this is not peculiar to me. So I have been feeling the suffering of bad government ever since. Also, some years back, I lost my dad. And I will tell you the conditions that surround how I lost him. My dad, Brigadier General James Olushola Nelson, served in the Nigerian military. He fought in the Biafran War. He used to tell us those wonderful stories. But when he experienced a diarrhea, simple diarrhea, he was rushed to a hospital nearby, and there was no adequate immediate attention given to him. Not because there were no doctors or nurses on ground, but because there was no drip, there were no medications to treat his ailment. He fell sick on a Tuesday. And when my siblings and I heard of his sickness, we decided to take him to a hospital in Ikeja. And we picked him up Wednesday morning. My father didn't make it to the hospital. Not because he was so sick, but because there was hold up and the normal 20-minute drive that it should have taken from Ikotoigbe to Ikeja. Took about 5 hours. He was already dead when we got there because he had lost water. Some years before then, I lost a wonderful woman. This is a woman who put all her efforts into training her children. She used to sell firewood to make a living. But because of the demands of educational system and because she wanted a good life for her kids, she had to put all the money she got from her trade into her children's education. One Wednesday morning, after she had attended a prayer meeting with some of the Christian brothers and sisters, she came home with all the thoughts of how to go around to help her kids have a meaningful life. She fell down from stroke, and we had to rush her to the general hospital. It took about 5 hours before we could get any doctor to attend to her. And from that point forward, her situation started deteriorating, and she eventually passed away. A year later, that woman I was talking about was my mother-in-law. A lot of you know about my story. A year later, another wonderful man died in the same process. And we rushed him to the Ikeja hospital when he suffered stroke. And we had to bribe the nurses even to get him a bed. And within a few days, he also died. Just last year, a friend of mine lost his wife because there was no adequate attention given to her during childbirth. And we know what Nigerians say when this kind of things happen. They say perhaps she's a witch, perhaps she's a mermaid, perhaps she made that decision on her own. This is not how God designed us to live our lives. And this is my own story. I've talked about more than 6 people that have lost. Not because they deserve to die, but because there was no adequate care for them. You know where Obasanjo goes to when he's sick. You know where Buhari goes to when he's sick. You know where Tinubu goes to when he's sick. None of them stay in Nigeria. And this is a country that they made so. How many of us have lost loved ones? How many of us have lost brothers, sisters, parents who never wait to reap the fruit of their labor? In 2010, when my wife was pregnant with my first baby, and I had gone to register my wife at the General Hospital in Ikorodu. When I went there, there were more than hundreds of people waiting to get a card in order to be admitted to see a doctor. And the man in charge was giving cards based on whomever he liked to give a card. And then I began to wonder what the future of my daughter would be like. These are not situations strange to all of you or to many of you. So when I make a decision to influence or to spark the fire of change, it is not because I'm looking to make a name, but because I understand that not every Nigerian, not the 120 or 130 millions of Nigeria would have the same opportunity I have to come to the United States of America. And most of those who are in those situations that I had witnessed before would die before they know it, and would repeat the same story. Would say it was because they were careless. I will share this scenario with you. When I came to the United States in 2010, I didn't have a job. Neither did my wife had a job. Now, the United States government provided health care and food for my wife. It cost about $20,000 for my wife to go through the process of care and delivery of the baby. All was financed by the United States government. We didn't need to know anybody. We didn't need to know any politician. We didn't need to know a governor. Now, You might say that is America. But I tell you, go outside in America. We have the same skies, the same seas. We have the same water, the same road. What the problems we are having in Nigeria is the system. A system of lawlessness. A system where there's no law. A system where a NEPA official would come to your house and just demand for bogus money for electricity that wasn't provided. A system where our students, our brothers and sisters go to school and they are harassed by instructors. By instructors who tell you from day one that if you do not have sex with them, you aren't going to pass. You aren't going to succeed in your academic career. A system where you paid a bus driver to take you to a certain part of town and you still have to beg him to stop so you can alight at the right place. A system of lawlessness. A system of high-handedness. A system where a police chief would announce that he was going to shoot masses who came out for peaceful exercise of their democratic rights to vote. A system where you could be arrested at any time of the day. A system where police officers would stop you and collect bribes from you. A system of lawlessness. A system where the federal government would issue funds to a particular sector in the country and would not manage the funds or would not oversee the contracts. That is the system we have today. That is the system causing us problems. One other question my friend asked me was that my assessment of Major General Buhari, retired, was wrong. I personally have nothing against Major General Buhari, but I have a lot for Nigerians to reason. Now come to think of it, we talk of change. The change we believe we began in 1999 when we voted in Obasanjo en masse. That is not change when we begin to recycle past military leaders in the political system. That is not change. We are doing the same thing and we're expecting a different result. Psychologists call this madness and insanity. Buhari has tried in his regime. If he couldn't make a change there, we should give someone different a chance. Are we Nigerians saying that out of the 120 million people, there is no one except a few number of people, 10 people who can come? I'll tell you what would happen. After Buhari, if we allow him to come in, if he's not listening to these messages and taking a decision to bring the desired change, very soon, General Ibrahim, IBB, General Ibrahim Babangida would also come. And with the level of poverty and suffering that would have been subjected to at that point in time, we think is the best thing. I've seen different actions and activities by General Obasanjo to re-launder his image, playing football, showing himself as a sportsman, and trying to support the government, the incoming government. These are all gimmicks to bring themselves back and keep perpetrating the same evil they have done before. In a time of war, you need a military leader to lead you to war. In the time of lawlessness, what we need is someone who understands the judicial system. Someone who will put in the right programs to ensure that, for instance, you could question a NEPA official who comes to you and ask the right questions and say, why would you give me this bill? Why should I pay for darkness? If I got supplied electricity for 3 days in the week, I should be able to pay for those 3 days. As I talk to you right now, my light bulb is on. And it's been on since ever I came to the United States of America. I decide how much electricity I use. And the same thing can be done in Nigeria, because some time ago, we were provided with facilities where we could use cards to determine the amount of electricity we use. This gives you a chance to be able to turn off your electricity if you'll be traveling, and when you come back from your travel, you could pay just the amount of electricity that you've used. It takes money to build these infrastructures and good people to maintain these infrastructures. But it will not be put in place, because if that is put in place, how would a marketer come and still pocket your 5,000s, your 10,000s, your 15,000s? In the educational system, I'm currently in school in the University of Tyler, Texas. And we're in the spring semester for 2015. As I stand here, I know my grades. For the 3 years I spent in Nigeria in the educational system, I couldn't even know my grade after 3 years. So many of my colleagues also couldn't. Many of us lost job opportunities because we couldn't present our results on time. And what was done to the perpetrators of this evil? Nothing. The system can be built such that you could write your exams and know your results at once. You could put a plan on a 4-year academic program and graduate after 4 years and then present your results and go look for a job. Let me tell you one more thing. With a high school qualification in the United States of America, a person with a high school qualification earns what is equivalent to 300,000 naira in Nigeria. I know a lot of my friends who are master degree holders in Nigeria who still go about teaching kids in order to get 2,000 naira, in order to get 1,500 here and there. I know a lot of them like that. We need somebody who can put the resources of Nigeria in place and ensure that there's a judicial process to monitor and to punish whoever breaks that continuum. What we need at this time is not someone who is high-handed or who has military background. We are not in times of war. If Buhari wants to make any changes, let him be installed or be given a position in our military so that he can use his experiences there. Nigerians, don't be fooled. What we lack in Nigeria is lawlessness, and we need someone who understands law. And they could fool you and say that the vice president or the running mate to Buhari is a lawyer, but he's the vice president and he has limited powers. He cannot issue executive orders. Now, mind you, I'm focusing on the APC party because I know they have the right man in there who can get the job done. But for reasons which, if we allow, we would begin to find out later, they are holding back and giving us someone whose major experience is in military, is in dictatorship. I have nothing against Buhari. He could be a fine man. I don't know him that much. But it's not the right person for this job at this point in time. I advise you Nigerians, go back to all the interviews that have been offered to Buhari and check out his responses. Hardly has Buhari given us a time frame for any of the programs he intended to implement. This is bad. These are bad signs. Most of Buhari's supporters are IBB, OBJ, Obasanjo. These are bad signs. Are we going to look and watch and sit till this happens to us again, when we know we can make the change now? I've looked through the list of the other political parties and I've seen some of them having their presidential candidate with qualifications of a lawyer. What we lack in Nigeria is lawlessness and recklessness and disorderliness. We need someone who could go back in there and pull a change such that single mothers who are impregnated by men in the society can be paid child support by those men and not be left to fend on their own. There are a lot of single mothers going to school, just abandoned by men, by those who impregnated them and got them to have babies. This is unfair. Fela Anikulapo Kuti, the famous musician, said, suffering and smiling. Nigerians, I need to tell you the truth. We are living billions of standards beyond where we're supposed to be. We should be the happiest people on earth. But because we keep doing the same thing and asking for a different result, that is why we are where we are now. My fellow Nigerians, this is not a message against any political party. This is not a message against Buhari. And like I mentioned in my earlier post yesterday, I said, if Jonathan would stand up right now, listen to this message, and issue executive orders to all the ministries in Nigeria, to the education ministry, and give them a task to go ahead and carry out a research in 6 months that would mirror the same kind of system run by developed countries, we would see a change in a little amount of time. If he would issue executive orders to restructure the judicial system so that you as a citizen can present your case whenever your right is being infringed upon, then we would have the change. We are clamoring for a change, but we are not going through the change in the right way. I'm telling you, in some years later, except for sure, the APC team is ready to bring a change, which obviously they are not ready. In some years, would prefer the government of Jonathan that we are now clamoring to remove. I'm not saying vote for Jonathan, but I'm telling you that this might even get worse for us if we are not careful. Fellow Nigerians, we'll continue some other time. But before I leave, like I told you, the change has begun, and we are going to achieve it in gradual steps. Hold the faith up. Share the messages we've been putting out there, and very soon we'll begin to see the difference. God bless you, and God bless the Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.